Didn't see you there. Silly me. Since the arrival of the white man to the New World, the Native Americans and their way of life has been constantly threatened by the aggression and disregard for traditional values that the Caucasians brought. American settlement, accompanied with Indian policy, led to the Indian Wars by creating land disputes and the forced removal of Indians from their lands to reservations. Forget that! They forced the Indians to go into tiny little pockets of land. Who does that? Who are we? Why did we do this? The Indians had every right to commit war and fight back for their freedom. Unbelievable.
By 1890, Indian lands had been reduced to a mere fraction of what they once were. American settlement forced the Indians into such small sections of land that in order to defend their tradition and culture, they had to fight back.
Raindrops, drop, top smoke.
Even General Philip Sheridan, a longtime Indian fighter, spoke of the atrocious things that the Americans did to the Native American people while settling on their lands. You know, I remember exactly what he said.
We took away their country and their means of support, broke up their mode of living and their habits of life, introduced disease and decay among them, and it was for this and against this they declared war. Could anyone expect less?
Interesting. The fact that General Philip found the treatment of the Indians cruel proves that what the Americans did was truly terrible. Not only did the Americans take in natives' land and put them in reserves, they introduced new diseases to the lands, which dramatically reduced the population.
War between Indians and Americans was inevitable, and America's thirst for wealth and property was merciless and resulted in the elimination and suffering of innocent natives. One Indian said that they had been relocated on 5 separate occasions. Due to America's greed for more land, conflicts with Indians was frequent and brutal. The Indians had been moved around frequently, and although some of them tried to resist the growing demand for war, the majority were in favor of fighting back.
American settlement in the Great Plains had also annihilated the buffalo population. The buffalo served as a vital animal to the Indians as it provided shelter, food, and clothing, and performed many other uses. The sudden decrease of buffalo devastated the native population, causing their old way of life to change while also increasing their demand for war. Helen Hunt Jackson ridiculed the United States for having forced Indians to feel at home, even though they were forced to completely change their ways of life and move from reservation to reservation. It seemed the only way for Indians to gain some consistency in life was to fight back.
Hello, and my name is President Andrew Jackson. I say that the natives are savages, and that the land is no longer theirs. These Native Americans had already been moved once, and consistent relocation could only lead to retaliation. And just think, as the President of the United States, surely his words have to mean something to the American people and their actions.
If the white man wants to live in peace with the Indian, he can live in peace.
Good old Chief Joey. Anyways, the Indians were not an aggressive people, and only fought due to an invasion of what was rightfully theirs. If their chief wanted peace, then the Indian people would take his orders and want peace as well, showing that the fighting was mostly the fault of the Americans, and not the Indians. The lands west of the Mississippi River were sectioned off to the Indians because Americans did not want the Indians living on their lands, even if the land originally belonged to the Indians. This made Indians feel as if they were not respected, causing conflict between the two groups. United States policy led to the Trail of Tears, which resulted in thousands of Indian deaths. Once again, policies created by the United States government angered the Indian people and resulted in many repercussions.
I'm glad you joined me for this journey. Turns out I do need the script. The government's policies towards Indians and the greed of Americans led to many conflicts among the Indians and white Americans. Many of these conflicts were due to the fact that Americans did not respect Indian culture. Americans created various acts and bills to protect the Indians, but instead sent them into pockets of land they deemed acceptable for Native American residents. The greed that Americans had for land forced Indians out of their native homes and further west. This forced the Indians to fight back for what was rightfully theirs. Turns out the Americans can take over all of the West. See you later. Signing off, this is Cooper Azuz from CNN Student News.
Even General Philip.
Expect less.
Oh! Didn't see you there.